Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Dicebreaker. If this is your first time here, then I'm Wheels. This is not our weekly live stream slot. We usually stream on Thursdays, where we do either sort of live plays of board games, or we do some painting, or all sorts of things like that. But this one's a little bit different, because I thought I was kind of working on this video where we just sort of look through some of the cool things that we can expect from Zinequest. And I thought this kind of more fits like a live stream format, gives more people like a chance to jump in and sort of shout about their games if they like escape my view sort of thing. So I thought this would be a good idea to just whack a second live stream. We will be streaming tomorrow as well, Peter Fisher, thank you for asking. So don't worry, that's still happening. But in the meantime, hello and welcome back. So for anyone who is a little bit confused of what's going on here, this is Zinequest. Zinequest is, and I've got like 400 tabs open right now, so bear with me. Zinequest is like a project that I think was started on Kickstarter and then officially adopted. But essentially, it's a month-long project where people who make tabletop role-playing games are encouraged to just try and get something out in the month of Zinequest. So it's kind of like a game jam in the way that, you know, like there's a limited time window, but instead of it being something where, you know, you start at an exact date and then just be happy with what comes out, it's more of a, hey, launch your project. Just do it. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect right now. Just do it. Just get it out there. Show people your work. And, you know, write something that you've always been thinking about writing, but you thought was too small to ever really try. You know, like it's a zine rather than a full-on game, so it's something that you can be a little bit more creative with without having to put massive amounts of resource in. But at the same time, you also get loads of really, really creative projects that are filled with all sorts of incredible designs and art and think pieces and all sorts of stuff. So we're going to be taking a look at some of the stuff that has gone up already, that is currently in the process of being funded, and then maybe a few things that haven't launched yet, because we're just over halfway through February, so there's still a few projects that might not have gone in. But here you go. Our annual Zinequest prompt bestows creators with this valiant mission: bring your RPG to life with maps, adventures, monsters, comics, articles, and interviews. To participate, launch a 2-week project for a single colour, unbound, folded, stapled, or saddle-stitched RPG zine on A5 or smaller paper. We'll start promoting projects Monday, February 1st, and continue through the month. So this is basically like an excuse for people to just be like, hey, I'm launching a zine. Let's all do it together. Let's all just have this sort of creative thing as one big sort of group of role-playing game creators, rather than just sort of having it sporadic and maybe losing out on some of the audience you might get. So it's a cool thing. It's not necessarily just linked to Kickstarter. There are games that will be on things like Indiegogo or Itch or anything else that people can crowdfund on. As people have sort of moved away from Kickstarter, maybe aren't as into using Kickstarter, that's fine. So hello to everyone in chat. Welcome. we're going to do this thing. Let's have a little look at who's joining us. Craig Boy says, I've already spent too much on this Zinequest already, so that's good to know. Let's hope that we don't completely bankrupt you. Hello, Latricia. Hello, Rasmus. Hello, Emmanuel Mello. Hello, Kashtub Chahan. Hello, Prismac George. Hello, David Munn, Iron Scar, M11. Hello to all of you. Hatchanoff, Jess, WhoMD21, Ricky McFadden. It's good to see all of you in the chat. Thank you for joining me. This will be a bit of a rambling one, which is why I thought it would be a good idea to do it as a live stream rather than anything else. I've also got I've got something to drink because I know I'm going to be doing a lot of talking, but also I also need to start refilling. So I've got an empty rum bottle that I've filled with cold water to keep my my mouth hydrated. But let's look through some of the stuff. So this is kind of the front page. This is just kickstarter.com/Zinequest, some of the stuff that's been highlighted. There's a few cool things that I was already sort of aware on this. I think it takes a random selection of some of the ones that they've sort of backed up. But there is the Lighthouse at the Edge of the Universe, which is a solo journaling game about running a lighthouse on the edge of the universe, funnily enough, by Ella Lim. That was something that I've sort of highlighted in one of my tabs that we'll look at in a sec. And another couple here that we found quite interesting here at Dicebreaker, Apothecaria, by Anna Blackwell, who you might know, who's got quite a few projects under their name, actually. But there's, quite a few cool things. This is backed, not created. There we go. Quite a few cool things that Anna's worked on before. Delve is something that I think we've talked about on the channel, which is sort of like a map drawing game about digging far too deep and stuff like that. But Apothecaria is the first one we'll take a look at because it's actually been touched on by Dicebreaker in an article. So this is a solo potion-making journaling RPG set in a cozy fantasy world with inspirations from Theme Hospital, Stardew Valley, and Studio Ghibli films. That's quite a list of things that are cool, you know. A lot of people calling me out saying it's not cold water in there. It is, I promise. I mean, would I be able to do this if it wasn't? If so, then I've probably got a problem. But yeah, so Apothecaria is one of the ones that we have kind of already slightly talked about. One thing that I really love about this is it's copper foil. So foiling, for anyone who's not aware, some RPGs come with a sort of shining. I don't know if I've got an example nearby. For example, when we played 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, you might have seen that there's a sort of golden foil underneath the cover. It just it makes the pages shine. It looks really pretty. And I am a magpie in human form, so I'm well into that. But Apothecaria is a solo journaling RPG in which you take the role of a village witch, creating potions for the unfortunate villagers, adventurers, and monsters that come to you for help. The potions you create and the stories that unfold come together to create a beautiful journal that is unique and personal to you. Fill pages with drawings of ingredients, stories of run-ins with thieving fairies and sleeping giants, and recipes for the potions you've created to keep you right in the future. With loads of unique ailments like fairy fever, candlestick, and yeti chest, Apothecaria aims to capture the humour and feel of games like Theme Hospital and Stardew Valley with the coziness and wonder of Studio Ghibli films. So as we see, this is an A5 book. 5 thematic postcards also come with this. Postcard minigames and expansions from Chris Bazette, Matt Sanders, and Jack Larison, which is very, very cool. And a potion sticker. So there's all sorts of little bits in this, but I love the idea of just having a sort of I don't know if I can sort of expand one of this. Electricia says I love 1,000-Year-Old Vampire and shiny things. But yeah, I don't know if I can just open it. Oh no, not save. Don't want to save it. If I can just open this up, and it's a little bit difficult to read, but for example, Candlestick. So I follow Anna on Twitter, and I've been reading a lot of the things she put out. A lot of them are actually really funny. Candlestick is a nasty disease that causes the afflicted to produce half their weight in earwax each day. Burns go hand in hand with this affliction. Thunderstruck, partial petrification, phantom limb, Reader's Digestion. Reader's Digestion is a very, very funny pun. So there's a lot of that sort of quite quirky humor in there, which I think is quite cool. And there's all sorts of bits and bobs, as well as a prototype of the crystal as corruption spread through it. It comes with a 3D crystal and stuff, which is very cool. So have a little look at that. So that's the first one that we looked at today, which obviously as I said, we've kind of looked at on the website before, so I don't want to give it too much time, but I think that's pretty sweet. Electrician says, I think this game was designed specifically for me. Rob Rock says, oh, I'm late. I'm not expecting this. Yeah, we're obviously a day early for the stream. We're still streaming tomorrow, so don't worry about that. We will be back tomorrow for more games and painting and stuff. But today I thought this would work better as a live stream rather than a pre-recorded video because it's going to be a bit rambly, like I said. But another thing that caught my eye on this page here was Wise Woman, which is something that I was taking a look at before even planning for this. I was like, oh, this is cool. This is by Alexandra Brockman, writer, historian, and TTRPG enthusiast from Manchester. So there's a little UK one here. Wise Women is a tabletop role-playing game in which the players take on the roles of witches living in a remote village. So this has got a similar theme to Apothecaria, where life is difficult and people often fall prey to supernatural creatures and curses. The witches have the ability to use magical properties of plants to protect their community and help it prosper, but their skills are viewed with suspicion and prejudice. After all, magic is another supernatural force, and the same plants that can heal can also be used to cause harm. So this is kind of like viewing it in a different lens. It's very like Apothecary vibes like the previous game, but instead of just having like a sort of, like idyllic world, it's not just, but instead of setting it in an idyllic world, it's set in more of a sort of like harsh and realistic tone. And I think they've got like actual like this is Wild Angelica, and we look at some of the other images that we have, no, maybe not, but anyway, like it's using real world plants. It's a little bit more grounded, I think, less sort of like fantasy comedy and more something that you'd expect from like actual witches in history, because witches were basically just healers who were probably a little bit too ahead of their time and got burned at the stake for the privilege. So that's that's something to sort of like give it a different lens as well. But I think this is really cool. It's really nice to see. So like content includes all rules needed to play Wise Women, information on the themes of the game and the guidelines for running it, brief information about Eastern European folk beliefs about the featured plants that inspired their magical effects in the game, and a guideline for creating a village and its NPC inhabitants, 10 creatures from Slavic folklore and suggested plot hooks for using them in your stories, and some art by Maria Danielek. So this is something that's quite cool. It's got like a sort of a more of a historical grounding, which I think is really important as well, because it's like a part of European history which isn't really talked about is the kind of impact that like Wise Women had at the time of literally being some villages like only chance of healing and stuff like that, and the amount of like prejudice that was brought upon them in return is always a little bit of a sore subject. So it's like it's a cool thing to explore, and to have that sort of like element of history behind it as well, I think is really interesting and important. So that is 2 RPGs already. We're flying through. We've done 15 minutes here. Electra says it has a real Book of Shadows look. Rasmus says cool concept, and Astral Sky says oh neat. But there we go. So a couple of other things on here, not ones that I've picked out apart from Lighthouse, which I think I've got in one of these tabs. None of these tabs are readable because they're so small. Yeah, there we go. So Lighthouse at the Edge of the Universe is not one I've gone through yet. So we are from now on, these are ones that I haven't had a proper chance to look at yet. Ella Lim is a writer, graphic designer, and zine maker who loves unexplained mysteries, the feeling of starting a new project, and houseplants. It's from AU, which is... Oh, God, I don't know any American state. Someone in the chat will correct me on that one. But the Lighthouse was this is the story for this game, by the way. The Lighthouse was an ordinary structure, except for the fact that it was balanced on the very edge of the universe. It had, some speculated, been standing since the universe began. Maintained by a solitary keeper, the Lighthouse has been keeping travelers and spaceships from falling off the edge. Its steady beam can be seen galaxies away and is used as a guiding star for navigators. You are the current keeper of the Lighthouse. Whatever happens, you must keep the light running. You and the Lighthouse live perched on the edge of the universe. It is a rocky, mostly barren place. It would look like any rocky island back on Earth, where it is beaten by solar winds and sometimes run into by space whales. Nobody told Johnny that I said that. Not at all. Not all of it is terrible, though. High in the top of the lighthouse, you get to witness strange lights dance. The solar winds whispering fortunes in your ears, shoals of skyfish migrating past. Maybe you'll find some solitude and peace in the under the dark. Lonely the sky. Ugh, I'm just putting those in random places here. And peace in the under the dark. I think that's just a typo. And peace in under the dark, lonely sky. Sometimes a lone traveler may even cross your path. So, the Lighthouse is a solo journaling game best played at nighttime before bed or for when you can't sleep. The Lighthouse is about running a lighthouse in space. It's played with a dice, a coin, and a pack of cards. Roll the dice and flip a card to get a prompt. Flip a coin to see how you go about the task. Record your duties, thoughts, and observations. Your notes in the logbook will be a record of your time in the lighthouse and the lighthouse itself. This has got a very different feel from the last lighthouse themed thing, which was the film The Lighthouse, which was a lot less wholesome. I always really love the idea of like the universe having an end. Like, you know, it's like that old folklore of the edge of the map in sort of like ancient cartography of just being like, we don't know what's here, so I guess this is just where the world ends and all the water just runs off. Like, who knows? But I do love that idea that like the universe, which is basically infinite, is kind of watched at the edge by a faithful lighthouse. I think that's a really sweet idea. So all of these things are going to have stretch goals and stuff like that as well. Let's read a little bit more about the zine. So the physical zine is currently 24 pages long. It'll be stapled and will be a small zine, which is very tiny actually, like in someone's hand there. If stretch goals are reached, then the zine will be roughly 32 pages long, and the cover design is not final, will probably change during revisions. A little paper craft cut out of a lighthouse at the end that you can put over your phone light for some tiny ambience. Oh, that's very cute. The zine will be professionally printed on uncoated 150 GSM matte stock over 200 GSM cover. So all of these projects are going to be physical, by the way. So, AU is Australia. My bad. So this is Aussie dollars. So a print print copy of this will run you $10 Australian, which I think is like a lot of these are going to be quite cheap on their own. I think shipping will always be a bit of a struggle, but I do encourage you all. The reason I wanted to do this, and the reason I think Zinequest is really, really cool, is it's basically like a window into not only like some of the coolest RPG designers out there right now, but also a window into some that are up and coming, because a zine is a really good place to try and learn game development and to dip your toes for the first time in that kind of ideal and try and figure out what your voice is and how you make games and stuff like that. So I think it's really important to back these things, to like get out there and give it some love and make sure that these things sort of get their due visibility, because you know, you never know, this could be someone's first game and suddenly they become the next John Harper or whatever, right? You don't really know where these people are going to come from. So I think projects like this are always really, really cool, because you get to see some of the designers that you know and love just writing passion projects, but also getting to see like new people in the industry and hearing new voices. With that in mind, this is very fucking cool. Oh, can't swear. My bad. But it is effing cool. This is Lichcraft, an RPG about trans necromancers. I love the idea of this one. Apologies for the F-bomb. So the subtitle for this one is an RPG... I know, Angel Beat, I'm sorry. An RPG zine about trans people waiting so long for healthcare that they decide to become liches, made for Zinequest 3. That is such, like... I think one thing about, like, these sort of zine... No, I'm sorry, chat. I apologize. My bad. This is the swear jar for today. I'll hydrate myself as penance. So yeah, one thing that I'd really, really love about these zines is that they, especially when they've got a really strong concept, they have such a good opportunity to have that perfect one line like elevator pitch for what this is. And for those of you who don't know, so I'm from the United Kingdom. This is where Dicebreaker is based. We have a real problem with transphobia in this country right now, and the waiting list for any kind of healthcare, also mental health as well, is just absurd and is actively working against trans people in this country. So we get to see like a trans person come out and try and like, well, I assume it's a trans person writing this, by the way. I'm not familiar with the creator, but like to try and put that into perspective and just sort of like make art about it, which is why I love these little zines where it's just like this condensed little idea of, hey, here's just some things that I'm feeling right now, and just sort of like shoved that into a project. And the art style's really, really lovely as well, especially with the little pink hints, which, transpied flag, I think, is a cool little touch. The year is 2069. The setting is Great Britain. The Tories have been in power since 2010. Due to National Health Service cuts, trans healthcare has been increasingly hard to access. The waiting list for a first appointment at a gender identity clinic is now 300 years. They don't want to outright refuse you. That would imply that the health service is over capacity or underfunded. Instead, they will simply add you to the end of the list and wait for you to die. But they are fools, for you have learned the secrets of immortality, and you will get to the end of the waiting list, even if it means waiting another millennium. Lichcraft by Laurie O'Connell. Laurie O'Connell is an RPG writer and international man of mystery from Cambridge in the United Kingdom. So, Lichcraft is a rules-light tabletop RPG set up to be played with 2 or more players. The play is inspired by Forged in the Dark system. So Forged in the Dark is the sort of open source rule set for Blades in the Dark. So it's like an open source rules document or whatever they're called. I'm just going to turn down. I'm getting Slack notifications. But yeah, so it's sort of like a like open source set of rules that you can use for your own games and then make them Forged in the Dark. So it's a simple D6 dice pool resolution mechanic. Instead of choosing classes or players, characters begin by choosing their politics, hobby, day job, and a magical source, and use attributes from these to add to their dice rolls. Give this game a try if you like dystopian settings, collaborative world building and play, magic-wielding queer characters, interesting and individualistic ways of spellcasting, and undeath as a metaphor for something. There we go. I can't believe I wasted my one F-bomb because now I can't say F-turfs. But I think this is a really, really cool way of art is a really powerful thing to just like hit back at something that you feel like you have no control over, because at least, you know, you can have control as much as you want over how you express, right? So it's a really, really, really cool way to go about it, I think. You're backing the core game, which has already been written, is available to download on itch.io. Backers will all get access to the digital PDF available as soon as I can send you a backer email, and this Kickstarter will enable new layout and art for the current game, as well as the printing of a physical zine. So there you go. If you want to see this in the world, here's another thing for you to look at. So this is another one that's hit their goal. So we're going to have a few that are sort of like they're big ones that have already gone. This one's only got 22 hours left on the clock, for example. M11 says, check out the last stretch goal. It's hilarious. One sec. So a new 10k stretch goal, 4 alternate quarter page settings for the game. So there's Lichcraft 4069, a wargame punk alternate Britain featuring an immortal queen ruling with an iron fist and many, many trans orcs. There's Lichcraft 1869, a western version of Lichcraft, trans cowboys robbing trains and taking names. Lichcraft Imperium, the year is 269 AD. Long have the Romans held dominion over your province, but you and your super queer gang of raiders are going to change all that, also become liches. And Lichcraft 20,069, trans space pirates taking on the space Tories. It'll work, I promise. Fantastic. Just excellent. Just absolutely fantastic. So another game that I've got queued up here from another trans voice is Visage, which is a 2-player competitive face-swapping TTRPG. Face off against your rival in this narrative combat RPG for 2 players. This one's got a really interesting aesthetic. It's got like a sort of vaporwavy kind of like almost cyberpunky aesthetic to it. Like it reminds me of I can't remember the name of the game now, but it's I think it's Inhuman something or other. Where it's basically they made a tabletop game, out of the interview that you do in Blade Runners to find out if someone is a replicant. It's got like a very similar vibe to that. Visage is a narrative combat TTRPG for 2 players inspired by cinematic rivalries. Players create characters in secret, their goals centered around each other's failure, and play starts when they wake after a strange surgical procedure that has swapped their faces. Now, alone and unrecognizable to their networks and loved ones, they must battle forwards towards their goals using unfamiliar resources and strange new friends. So this is a really, really interesting one. Aaron Lim says, Inhuman Conditions. Thank you very, very much. It's a 2-player GM-less 1 to 3 hour with 0 prep. So the central mechanic in Visage is the interplay between the character sheet and the dice pools. The character sheet functions as a list of usable resources that players can invoke to access more dice for their pools. Character creation of Visage is unique in that it allows players to build the resources in the form of narrative prompts that their opponents will be playing with. So you're actually kind of making each other's character, which is a really interesting thing. So a little bit about the creator as well. This is Maxwell Lander, who is a photographer, game maker, and artist. In 2016, he published a book of photography exploring queerness and sci-fi aesthetics before taking a brief hiatus to delve into game design, interactive media, and immersive technology. In May of 2019, he completed his MDES in the Digital Futures program at OCADU, where he explored VR technology as a physical disruptive medium for queer play. He released his first TTRPG in the beginning of 2020 and is now more than a little hooked. It's an addictive drug, let me tell you. But yeah, so it's got this interesting idea where it's like, once again, sort of playing with trans narratives of kind of the shift of identity. I think there's going to be a lot of really interesting fiction and art around how our identities sort of like manifest themselves in the future, with now just like a really, really like big community of trans creators sort of like coming together again and finally actually getting some support for this kind of thing. So I think there's going to be like a really interesting new perspective on games in the world. And like, I'm happy to report that as far as I can see from like Itch.io and things like that, the online sort of indie tabletop role-playing space has been really transpositive, myself included, I hope. Tell me if not. Which I think is going to hopefully inspire a lot of really cool new creators to come into the space. And this is just showing some of the fantastically cool stuff. I do want to show this as well, this faceless dice box, which is one of the pledge rewards, I think, which is really, really cool. It's got this kind of like synthwave aesthetic of the kind of, what are they called? You know, like kind of old TV, like the scan lines. Thank you. There we go. Scan lines, as well as some cool stickers. So there you go. Visage, two-player competitive face-swapping TTRPG. So a game in which you literally create each other's characters, or rather you create your character and then someone steals it from you. Like, it's really interesting because you're still playing that character, but you're having to sort of masquerade as the person across the table. Really, really interesting. So that is one of the cool things that we've got for today. We've already done half an hour and I'm only just getting like through 3 of the tabs that I've got here, although we did a brief intro as well. Right. Blammo. Next tab. Dodecker. So let's go a little bit more classic now. Dodecker is a D12 based old school style role-playing game with narrative, character creation, and world building. So once again, like, I don't know much about the creators of these necessarily, apart from the first one that we talked about. This one is Peter Lattimore, an experienced role player of over 30 years. I'm the creator of Garblag Games Twitch channel and community. I'm a published TTRPG cartographer and have written several adventures and settings. Join our community here. I will just say, like, I'm not necessarily endorsing any of the creators here because I don't know anything about them personally, but I'm just showing off cool games. So if anyone is like, you want to tell me about, maybe don't look into this person because of things that have happened in the future or in the past, sorry, feel free to shout out in the chat. That's fine. But Dodecker is like very, very classic RPG vibes. I think this is one of the most OSR looking games I've ever seen. Do you know what I mean? So a D12 game called Dodecker is very, very fun. Electricia says, who thinks 12-sided is the best die? I really like a D12. I also really like a D8, I just want to point out. I think D8s are really nice. I think they have a really cool shape to them. Rasmus says, now I can't remember Wheels' stance on the different dice types. So many dice and so many options. Okay, here is my, before we move on, comprehensive Wheels interest in dice, like, metric. So let's start with, I mean, I guess you've got the D2, which is a coin, right? I think, like, I don't really like coins because I hate metal. We've talked about that on the channel a lot, so I won't bother going into that. D4's next. And we'll just use the standard because obviously you can have any sided die. D4, I think, is cool as long as you aren't rolling it. As long as you roll it, it's a crap die. But if you're just using it for counters, or if you're like using it as like a sort of, you know, metric for something, I think they look really cool. Next, we've got D6 classics. I mean, I've got these, like, where are they? I've got these really gorgeous, like, orange solar flare D6s. I think if you're using D6s, use pips. Pips are way cooler than numbers. But D6s are fine. I think they're a good, stable die that you can use for most things. Then we move on to the D8. And this is what I think. The D8, I think, is a really underappreciated die. It's got a cool-ass shape because it looks like 2 pyramids that have been stapled together. That's cool as hell. Or like a plumb bob or a crystal, you know? That's pretty dope. And then not only that, it's got like actual rollability to it, even though it's got like a like it's divisible by 4, like the D4. It's actually able to roll itself. I think D8s are really cool. Don't come at me. D10s next. Not necessarily a cool die, but a very useful one, because Kobe says, I'm not going to ramble, gives opinions on each type of dice. Now, okay, D10s are useful but not cool, right? Because D10s are literally percentages when you're using dice. So if you roll number or under, because a lot of people try and say, oh, roll this or higher, which I think actually confuses people's odds a lot. Because if you say roll this number or lower, then you've got the exact percentage of chance that you have to hit the number that you're looking. So you're rolling a D10 and you say you need to get a 6 or under, you have a 60% chance of rolling that number. It's so easy to read. It's so easy to read. Like they're really useful. Then we move up to D12s, and I think D12s are the connoisseur's D20. So first of all, reduced numbers equals more readable odds. Second of all, I think D20s are just too easy to cock, and like they don't satisfyingly sit properly, you know, because they're just a little bit too circular. Whereas the D12 is a little bit more chunky. It's got like a little bit more of a flat surface that can sit around and do all sorts of things. And that's why I think the D12 is cool. And as I said, the D20, overrated, completely overrated. It sucks as a die. Anyway, Dodecker. Talking of D12s, Dodecker is a game of grimdark adventures. Using 12-sided dice, Dodecker employs a narrative, character creation, and world-building process. The process gives players and game masters an immersive, shared experience before the game begins. CJ Carter says, wow, I show up during a dice hit list. That's fun. In Dodecker, the world is against you, and the odds are not good. In fact, nearly zero. These stories involve tests and dark places, but avoid lingering in that darkness. As long as such adventures don't lead too hard into darker themes, they can be great ways to tell stories of camaraderie and heroism. Not grand hero-style adventures, but the kind of heroism it takes to go into battle when you know the odds are nearly insurmountable. Grab your sword, fetch your rifle, and don't forget the grenades. So this is quite cool. It looks like I don't know if I'd call it innovative, although they've straight up used the word here, so let's see what they've got up with a combat system here. Innovative combat system. The combat system of Dodecker is designed to simulate the flow of battle. There are no rounds. Instead, the initiative wheels allow... It's got a wheel in it, gang. It's got a wheel in it. The initiative wheel allows players to perform actions as soon as they can be complete, not in a set order. Okay, actions as soon as they can be complete, not in a set order. So weapons and armor also are defined by the player. Selecting features and flaws allows you to personalize your equipment and come up with your own type of melee or ranged weapons. So I'm not entirely sure how this works. I'm guessing it's like a sort of, it takes this many turns to do something rather than, it's your turn, you can do whatever you want, maybe? That's kind of interesting, I guess. There we go. I was looking for something that wasn't just you roll dice, but they've got 12 sides, and I think that's kind of an interesting way of handling combat. And combat is something that really, I think combat in RPGs is something that really needs a shake up. Like, I think a lot of it is very dull, so it could use a little bit of an interesting turn for the new. Rollrock says, now you're interested, you have to back it. So, next up, and I'm going to try and rattle through these a little bit quicker because I did a comprehensive dice review in the middle of this one. So, this one I know nothing about, but looks incredibly cool. D36, a strange RPG zine, delivered quarterly. This is another one that's done pretty well. It's hit their goal already. So issue 2 has been funded and down. Oh, okay, right. So they're actually doing it. They've hit their goal for the first issue, but because they're doing 4 throughout the year. These look gorgeous, by the way. The art style is really, really nice. It reminds me of 1,000-Year-Old Vampire a little bit. That kind of is it decoupage? The when you get like sort of wrapping paper and images and kind of like collage them together, that kind of thing. So, what is this? D36 is a quarterly zine of strange RPG content that doesn't comfortably fit anywhere else. Random tables, microsystems, new games, spells for your OSR dragon game of choice. The content inside D36 is as varied and eclectic as the creators designing it. The first issue is visceral, bloody, and violent. Consider this a content warning for body horror, decapitation, violent revolution, and reference self-harm. So that's an important thing to know if anyone's looking at this. So let's see what's inside the first issue. Strange things come from the forest of trees that bleed. Adventure prompts by Cinta Posadas. Things the Meat Says. Prophecies for the Discerning Haruspecs by Kat Evans. The Meat Box, a weird ultraviolet magic item and set of new spells of gross body horror for OSR games by Samuel Mee. So this has got like a real sort of like gritty, bloody horror vibe, which is very, very cool. And yeah, the layout looks fantastic. Like if you're looking for like a really, really lovely coffee table book as well, look at this. Actually, now it's giving me even more like Morkborg vibes. Actually, that's got like a really fantastic like really balls to the wall art style. I love these things that are just like, I'm gonna lay out text in a way that you physically cannot read it without like having to turn your head over all over the page, you know. But yeah, I'm into horror stuff. I'm into dark stuff. Like, I like it when they really just lean into it and just go wild with it. So it looks like we've only got sort of visuals of the first game so far. His worship, who sings in vermilion cloisters. Very, very cool. We've got Bone Spur, The Hematurge, The Streets Will Run Red, Just Gals Being Comrades, a GMless game about romance and violent uprisings by Jessica McCrum, and Behold Affliction, a folk horror short fiction by Alex C. So this one looks really cool. Once again, it looks like it's funded. Manchester, UK as well, so we've got another UK game. It looks like it's funded, but it looks like they've actually only done half of the zines they want to do throughout the year, so bear that in mind. Moving on. Through Hiker. So this is something that I saw. So I actually did a tweet before I started this a couple of days ago to essentially just call out and say, hey, if you've got a cool game that you think is cool, give me a shout out. This one actually got added to me by the creator and then by someone else who thought it was cool as well, and I think it looks quite interesting. This is Through Hiker, a journaling game of long distance hiking. You use playing cards and writing prompts to plan your hike, manage your resources, and write your story on the trail. I stand at the terminus, pack on my back, trekking poles in hand, excitement in my veins. I savor the moment. A cold mountain breeze carries the scent of rain and adventure, and I smile. I've waited endless months for this day, and taking a deep breath, a grin on my face, I begin my through hike. One foot in front of the other, I set out and follow the blazes. So this is by Daniel M. Perez, nurse by day, which is very cool, writer by night, always a husband and dad, forever tired, always looking to squeeze a few words more out each day. I know that feel. Through Hiker is his game, and it's a journaling game about telling stories of being on a long-distance hike. Using your writing instrument of choice, a pack of playing cards, and a series of writing prompts, you will create stories of the joys and challenges of being on the trail for days, weeks, or months at a time. Designed for those dreaming of their own through hike, a writer adventurers in search of new narrative challenges, Through Hiker is an easy game to learn for experienced gamers and newcomers alike, one that's sure to deliver hours of imaginative fun. So, what I really love about this, so, you know, like another journaling game, that's cool. What I really love about this is embrace the suck. You get to see from things like Zinequest really sort of like really not out there, but like things that you don't normally see in game development. Like there are more RPGs about fantasy warriors than I've had hot dinners in my life, you know, like, but having a sort of like interesting perspective from someone who is just really into something outside of RPGs is always really an interesting thing. And I think this goes the same for a lot of things like video games, anything like that. If you've got someone who's really interesting in a hobby that has nothing to do with something else but combines the two, usually you get like a really interesting, unique perspective. So you can tell from the photo, Daniel's obviously a really intrepid hiker, like obviously loves going on these long walks. Big old picture of him with his bandana and huge rolling hills behind him. So to hear like his voice through this is also really cool, because it's not just about, you know, like I've made an RPG in the theme. Sometimes it's like, I've made an RPG because this is something I'm really passionate about, something I'm really knowledgeable about, which is also really cool. Let's see some comments. Moonchild says, Wheels reading stuff out is somehow super relaxing. Nisana says, hikes, remember them. Nathaniel says, I could see this one changing into a survival horror. Yeah, true. Electrician says, from what I hear, hiking is usually outside. The inside kind sounds way better, which is a fair comment. So that is Through Hiker, a journaling game of long-distance hiking by Daniel M. Perez. So have a little look at that. This is Daniel's third project, which is cool. So once again, like new creators on Kickstarter, always good to see. Let's see what we've got coming up. So, Errant is a rules-light, procedure-heavy RPG in the old-school tradition. Once again, this is another, like, very obviously an OSR project. For anyone who's hearing that a lot and isn't understanding, OSR is old-school Renaissance, which is basically sort of channeling the super old-school, like, AD&D, like, really old, simple RPG vibes that maybe some people miss from older times, or are just sort of, like, trying to imagine a new light in a modern era. You have no job. You're a failure. Sorry, let me just read that out first in case anyone didn't get it from the text that's about to come up. You're a failure. You have no job. You have no home. You have no friends. You have no family. You have no prospects. What you do have are a particular set of skills, the kind that make respectable folks avoid you, a handful of pennies, and a suitably blithe disregard for your own life. Out there, beyond civilization, lies danger. Monsters and magic and ancient ruins pregnant with treasure. Death is likely. But did you have to live? What did you have to live for anyway? At least out there is the chance to make something of yourself and maybe even get back at those who wronged you. Surely this is no life for decent folk. But you're not decent folk. You are an errant. Angel B says, I feel called out. Moonchild says, sounds like my life right now. Errant is a classic fantasy role-playing game in the vein of the first few editions of that role-playing game, and its many imitators and descendants, such as Knave, Into the Odd, and the Black Hack. It is freely compatible with material for all those games, as well as the newest edition of that role-playing game, with conversion guides provided within. I believe they're referencing the Dragon game for anyone who's interested. Errant is designed with the following principles in mind. Keep it simple, stupid, which is, I think, an Office reference. No math above a second grade level necessary. Cut to the chase. The procedures in Errant are designed to create a gameplay experience in which the smallest possible time between meaningful decisions is maintained. Active, not passive. To that end, player abilities are designed around the player making active choices, not receiving passive bonuses. Even using armor to defend is a choice. And options, not prescriptions. All rules and procedures in Errant are intended as guidance to provide a toolbox for play. Rules are written to be open-ended, extendable, and use natural language wherever possible. We trust you to make good decisions. So there we go. It sounds like it's more of a sort of like book of things to do, because the fact that it's compatible with so much stuff, I'm not sure if it's going to contain its own core rules or you use it with a like a system of your choice. As the son says, Wills, if you call AD&D simple, you and I define simple differently. Well, I didn't mean AD&D. I mean like very, very early Dungeons and Dragons and like very, very early RPG systems in which it was basically like you've got like 4 stats and you roll the die and you add it on top, and that's basically all that you do throughout the game, sort of thing. Where it's like super low stakes chunky rules, characters that die really easily, like that kind of thing, like invoking that sort of thing. AD&D it stands for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, so I was clearly not meaning that when I said it, my bad. But there you go. Errant, a rules like procedure heavy RPG in the old school tradition. Moving on, it's another one that got sent to me on Twitter. This is by Aaron Lim, who is a tabletop games designer based in Malaysia. His work ranges from board and card games to story games and tabletop RPGs, and most of his work is self-published at aaronlim.itch.io. So, an altogether different river. This one's really pretty, and I really love, as well as like, I mean, I can't really talk about it here, but like, I write games. Anyone who has read the title of any of the games I've written knows that I love a big winding title. An altogether different river is really lovely and poetic. It is an RPG zine about creating a town and seeing how it changes through the eyes of those who left and returned and those who remained. So what is it? An Altogether Different River is a storytelling game with 2 to 4 players about creating a town Sorry, that's what I just read. It's meant to be played in 1 or 2 sessions, about 3 to 4 hours each, and does not require a game master, though having a dedicated facilitator can be helpful. It's really, really gorgeous. Oh, I didn't realize, actually, it's got like a sort of future city in the background with like more traditional city in the foreground, vibe to it, which is very nice. Reminds me of My Time at Porsche, that video game. Have anyone seen that? Really, really gorgeous art. How do you play? So at the beginning of the game, you create the town using a system based on Caroline Hobbs' Downfall. Each player picks an element, and the town is formed from the combination of those elements. So some of the elements here, so we've got things like air, water, earth, fire, but also space, void, mist and clouds, island, volcano, beach and river, animals, flowers, trees and insects, that sort of thing. So combining those, you get sort of like a picture of what your city might be like. I've always been into typefaces. Don't you dare claim that's an Oxbox thing. Then 2 maps of the town are drawn, the town then and the town now. These represent the town during different time periods as the characters remember them. Each player creates a character, choosing to either be one who returned or remained, and each character provides a different lens to explore the town and their own relationship to change. Returned characters left the town then and have just recently returned to the town. They are slightly more focused on their own concerns and how the town's changes reflect on their own feelings and growth. Remained characters have stayed in town throughout that time. They're slightly more focused on community concerns and how their actions and experiences are reflected in the town's changes. So that's a really interesting sort of like dual perspective idea where you've got like a... it's not just... because there's quite a few of these sort of GM-less world-building games. A few of them sort of came up in some of the GM-less RPGs that I talked about on the channel in list videos if you haven't seen those before. But there's... oh, Aaron Lim, thank you very much for joining us in the chat. Good to see you. But this is an interesting one because you physically split the world into 2 perspectives and also 2 sort of like ideals as well, which is really, really interesting. I like the idea of having not just a world that you've created together, but also having like a really different view of how that world works and what it's like. And it kind of like, it harks back to that idea of, you know, like when you go back to your old town that you grew up in and there are people who you went to school with who have just sort of lived there forever now, and like seeing where the, like where they've gone and what they've done, and like how their world has just been completely different to yours because they haven't gone somewhere else and come back. And like, I think that's a really cool idea. What do I want to make this? This first draft of an altogether different river in 2020 as part of my Game and Mum 2020 project. However, it had its start way earlier, back in 2019. I originally conceived of an altogether different river as part of Homebound, an anthology team that I produced in 2019 with the help of V. Hendro and Cecile Richard. Homebound was a significant personal project that collected games about home and going away, made in the context of my move back to Malaysia after 14 years living in Melbourne, Australia. Wow. I gave copies away as a farewell gift to some friends and also made a version of it available online on Edge. That is incredibly wholesome. I really, really love the idea of this. So currently, 187 backers over the goal, which is good to hear. There are stretch goals, though, I think. Let me just find them for you. Oh, maybe not. Never mind. Yeah, just grab it if you want it then. It looks really lovely, to be honest. I really, really love the art style of the cover. Thanks for joining us in the chat, Aaron. Aaron says, check the latest updates for the in-progress images for the cover. And thanks for checking out the game. In-progress updates for the cover. Where are we looking? Oh, wow, yeah, lovely. Illustrations in progress. So you can see some of the, like, ideals that have gone into this. I really like the layout choice of having that sort of like chunks of text next to just whopping big illustrations, but ones that are kind of like transparent backed and just sort of like nestle into the colors of the page. Like, it reminds me of I'm not sure if you've played it yourself, Aaron, but it reminds me of I'm sorry, did you say Street Magic? Is that what it's called? Which is like another world building sort of like GM-less RPG group game, which is very cool. So there we go. Once again, that is Aaron Lim with an altogether different river. Check that out. Let's see what we've got next. See You Space Cowboy is a sci-fi space bounty hunter jazz fusion role-playing game. #Zinequest. This one actually comes with a video. If you want to watch that for yourself, click to Embiggen for full cover art. Oh, very cool. Very lovely design. This is very obviously themed after a very, very, very good Oh, Aaron's author is in the chat as well. Thank you for joining. Good to see everyone coming in. I hope we've given like a good sort of window into your game. If there's any more bits of detail that you want to shout about in the chat, just go ahead. This is very much showing our audience all the cool stuff that's happening in Zinequest. So feel free to chat about yourselves. This is obviously based on a very, very cool anime that I don't know if they're going to mention in the explicitly in the text, because they might want to be avoiding too much of a copyright claim. But I mean, obviously, Cowboy Bebop is fantastic. It's one of my favorite anime series. So to have something set in a very similar world is very cool. See You Space Cowboy is a tabletop role-playing game zine set in outer space where the players create characters called outlaws, bounty hunters who fly across the galaxy in search of their next payday, landing in hot water, manipulating people, and starting gunfights. One player is called the band leader. They set up situations for the outlaws to overcome, including playing as all of the antagonists, bounties, friendly characters, talking computers, and other things they might meet. So this is by Onslaught 6 from Philadelphia. 30 and counting, connoisseur of fine trash. Not ever going to make it, but then again, who does? I make music in the band Reapers, and I make indie tabletop RPGs. That's a very, very cool intro. So there's an Ashcan version for free right now with a Google Drive link, which is cool, with character sheets too. We've got some art preview as well. What is this game? In late 2019, I became frustrated with the complexity of other RPG systems for certain groups of players. We all love our tactical grid-based combat and 5 footsteps, but I wanted to play something that had the kinetic energy of a cinematic action scene and that fit into the aesthetic of my favorite late 90s and early 2000s anime. I wanted a game where character creation was fun, especially for brand new players. There's no rolling for attributes, distributing points, or making various choices that relate to things you don't necessarily understand. I wanted a game where you only needed a single set of polyhedral dice. Sure, in theory, you can play the world's most popular role-playing games with just a single set, but as soon as you need to roll 2d6 every turn for your greatsword damage or brick of d6s for a fireball spell, that starts to fall apart. That's a very, very good point. I wanted a game where you didn't need the d20. As of writing this, there isn't a single mechanic that uses it, and I aim to keep it that way. Well, we just said the d20s are overrated in this chat, everybody, so there we go. Good to hear. Oh, yeah, you cannot put the theme in my head because then it's going to be in there all day. But yeah, how does it work? Like other tabletop RPGs, one player plays as the game master and sets up situations for the players to overcome. In this case, primarily the hunting of criminals who have bounties put on them by the police. In this game, player characters have traits which are all assigned a die, a d6, a d8, a d10, or a d12. When you want to do something risky, you will roll that die. The traits are broken down into 4 categories: muscles, moves, brains, and cool. Each is associated with a particular maneuver or action called a break, as in a musical break, break for it, or solo break. And whenever you do something with a risk of failure, you'll perform a break. So it looks like they've got like a partial success system, kind of similar to Powered by the Apocalypse. 5 or below, something bad, and you gain juice, which kind of reminds me of Momentum. Partial successes, and then above is a full success. There are also special equipment and circumstances that you can give you flat bonuses to your break rolls. More cool art to see as well. And there's open rule set for you as well, so you can get a pretty good view of what it is before you give it a back. And sounds pretty cool. So there you go. This might be their first project? First created. There we go. First ever project on Kickstarter, so go give them a shout. Looks like they've broken their goal. I'm not sure if they've got stretch goals laid out just yet. It doesn't look like it. No, but if you like it, go back it. Right. Next up. This is one that I've actually backed myself because this one looks sick. I absolutely love the art style of this one. This is by Valley of Alfred. Sometime writer, illustrator, and game designer unable to let go of the childhood thrill of play. I just hit the back button. My bad. I've already about this one. So this is based out of the UK again. This is Lay on Hands, a solo dexterity-based RPG. Wander the post-apocalyptic wasteland as a weird healer. This one not only has a cool aesthetic, not only has a cool idea, but also has some really cool mechanic stuff in here as well. Moonchild says, honestly, this stream is kind of saving me from the anxiety of studying right now, so thank you for this chill time. You're very, very welcome. So what is this? Lay on Hands is a storytelling game zine for one player in which you play an unnaturally gifted healer in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. A healer is not something that you normally see as the protagonist in these kind of things, which I think is quite cool. Healers are always like seen as like a support character in RPGs, and they often tend to have like a sort of backline, sort of like just out of the way until we need you kind of vibe. So I think to put someone like that in like the front and spotlight is a fun thing. You'll wander the ravaged land and channel the strange powers that run through your hands to unburden the needy, shrive the wayward, and rout the corrupt. You will embrace the weirdness of the wasteland, fight heroic battles, and risk your life to fulfill the covenants you have sworn. So you're kind of playing like a weird wasteland Jesus, which that's a really cool concept, right? Especially for a solo game. The game straddles a line between a journaling style experience and an OSR style one, whilst remaining relatively rules light. It's a bit like Ironsworn meets Troika meets Fallout with an activity sheet. So what's so special? This is the cool part. As Electricia says, I love dexterity games. I think they're amazing. Putting dexterity stuff in RPGs is great. Look at Dread. Dread is a fantastic game. Angel B just said, sweet Jesus. Here we go. So, tensions without dice. Instead of rolling dice to check for successes of your character's actions, you will spin a coin and try to complete sections on one of 3 drawing mini games. You can see one here before it comes to a stop. The result of the coin also contributes to the outcome of what you're trying to do, adding narrative tension beyond simple success versus failure. It's strangely tense, undeniably unbalanced, and when your character succeeds, you really get that sweet taste of real life effort and achievement. So there is like a sort of thing with like playing solo games where it often feels like you are just kind of telling a story. There's not that much mechanical stuff to it. Even with things like 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, which it does have more of like a stat line and like things you can spend and resources and things. A lot of the time they do feel like they're more like prompts than they are actual mechanics. But this has got like a real sort of test of skill. So instead of just having like, here's a dice roll, see what happens, which can often feel a bit prescriptive, this is like a really interesting way of like actually putting you, the person, under pressure, which I think is really cool. Alfred, who is in the chat, thank you very much for joining us, says, tread carefully, Wheels. I already heard how much you hate D2s. I do not hate D2s as a concept. I hate coins because I think metal things are gross and dirty. But there we go. So, yeah, the coolest thing about this, if you see where the coin spins, where it lands gives you a secondary prompt. So you not only get the randomness out of like a dice roll where it's kind of like got predetermined odds, you can kind of spin a coin in any way that you want. And if you spin it in a certain area of the sheet, you might get an idea of where you're landing and stuff like that. There's like a weird sort of like a weird kind of prescience you have, I guess, over the random chance you're getting. So this is transcendent randomness. Put yourself in the shoes of an unconventional prophet. At the heart of the game is the Oracle, a table of 36 abstract prompts inspired by tarot fortune telling, which helps generate unexpected detail in every part of the heroic story you'll be creating. It also quite neatly doubles up as a tray for spinning your coin in. So, for example, power 31, the dagger, cruelty. You get loads of like very, very short, succinct prompts and stuff that give you a cool idea as what what kind of like theme that you get. So one game that we talked about on the channel before is Gentleman Bandit, which is one of my favorite sort of like solo writing RPGs, because it's actually like a poetry game, which is really cool. But it uses not only and I've seen this in other games, like I'm not like attributing it as like invented by that person or anything, but it uses that idea of like you have not just, hey, here's the prompt, but also like what's the tone of the writing, because when you kind of like combine those two things together, you get like a really interesting idea of like it's not just, oh hey, you've gotten a fight. It's like, cool, you got in a fight, but how does that feel if you're really happy about it, or how does that feel if you're really like upset about it? Like that's a more interesting prompt to me, of like, this isn't just a thing that happened, but you feel about it in a way that might not always match up, and you have to kind of reckon with that in your head. So like if you got in a fight and you were joyful about it, like, you know, maybe you were just pent up with emotion and needed to just smack it out of someone. But if you were really like upset about it, maybe you were forced to fight someone that you really didn't want to because you were put in a bad position, you know. Alfred Valley says, coming up, new stretch goal to create a plastic 10p for wheels. I mean, look, Alfred, I wouldn't stop you doing it. As long as it comes with whatever award I backed at. I can't remember. One-page summary. So the game's rules are condensed into a single-page reference, so you can get stuck in the good stuff without getting bogged down. There's unique artwork. I really love the aesthetic of this. Alfred, I don't know if you've done the design of it yourself or if you've got like an illustrator working with you, although it says here that you're an illustrator, so I would assume that you've done it yourself. It looks gorgeous. I really, really love the aesthetic of it. I think it's got that really like really moody kind of, it reminds me almost of F sharp, A sharp Infinity by Godspeed You Black Emperor. It gives me those vibes. I would definitely have that playing in the background when I'm playing this, I think, if that means anything to you. But there we go. This is one that I really, really like the look of. It is funded, I believe. Yep, funded quite comfortably, but we've got some stretch goals to hit as well, so look out for those. So, for example, there is one coming up at 2,000. We don't know what it is yet. You have to find out. But they've unlocked Play on Hands, which is a system reference document, which is really cool. So that was what I was talking about Forge in the Dark earlier. It allows other people to make games based on those mechanics, which is really nice. And also extra character archetypes and the Tundra Bow, which is an original setting. So there you go. Really, really cool. This is one of my favorite ones that I've seen so far, obviously because I've backed it myself. So really, really awesome. Yes, Alfred, thank you. Oh, the dead flags hang from their poles. If you haven't listened to that album, by the way, it's incredible. If you like post-apocalyptic doom rock, it's great. It's really good. Let's see what we've got next. So this is one that we actually wrote about on the website. The Door Locks Behind You, a puzzling dungeon adventure game. So this is actually based on The Legend of Zelda, an old school design philosophy. It's got a really gorgeous aesthetic again. I really love the colors. It's got that kind of Game Boy feel to it. But it's sort of, I think it's based on, it actually, like, from what I was having it described, it's taking some liberties with the Triforce. From what I had it described as to me by Mian, who was talking to me about it, it's got this vibe of, like, you have equipment that you solve problems with, and it's brittle. So it actually kind of reminds me more of, pardon me. Ooh, I had a bit trapped there. Actually reminds me more of Breath of the Wild than it does the retro games, because it got that idea of, like, things only exist for so long. You need to use them sparingly and well, right? So you've got equipment here like slingshots and lanterns and nets for butterflies and stuff. But those little Triforce bits are uses. So, like, if you fail a dice roll, you'll actually damage them. I think there's a 4 in 6 chance of them getting damaged. So what's in the game? Let's read this first. So The Door Locked Behind You is a tabletop role-playing game for 2 to 5 players, including one game master. The game strives to recreate the gameplay of the Legend of Zelda series in an old-school TTRPG context by using an item-focused system that puts player ingenuity and resource management at the forefront. Bozpag says, I backed this the other day. What's in the game? Fast-paced combat focused on item usage. Printable character sheets and item cards for easy arts and crafts inventory management. This is another really lovely thing. You actually kind of like Mouse Ritter? Was that what it was called? Hold on, let me just look this up on a different window. Is it Mouse Ritter box set? Is this the one I'm thinking of? Yes, Mouse Ritter. So this is something that we talked about on the podcast. Little things that you actually fill blocks with, kind of like, you know, like a actual space inventory that you see in like video games and stuff like that, which I think is really cool. Anything that is a bit more tactile, I'm really into with RPGs. I think a lot of the time you can really pull someone in rather than just having it be completely theatre of the mind or full on miniatures. You can have like an interesting sort of like middle ground where you have like little tactile bits that you can do with your characters and stuff like that, which is something that I always love to see in designs. So having like a little actual space-based inventory and having little checkboxes and stuff like that, love it to pieces. What's it like to play? Player characters carry a limited number of items, each of which have a limited number of usages before they break. After using an item, a player rolls a 4 in 6 chance to mark off a usage. When a monster attacks, players can use what's in their hands to block and negate all damage, but possibly lose that item. When a player character falls in battle, they get right back up, but lose the ability to carry a number of items. Players succeed when they can defeat the boss monster and collect the Relic of Power before the dungeon and its monsters break all of their items or knock all of them out. So it's also got like a sort of succinct kind of like, we play in this dungeon. Like, it's also nice to see one that's not just sort of like, go ahead and figure out yourself. It's got like a real sort of arc of this is where the game ends kind of thing, which is also nice to see. But there we go. We've got stretch goals to hit. This one has been Very, very well funded. 4 times the goal it's been looking for. Let's see if there's stretch goals on the way. Yes. So, for example, background music is on the way. So, at 5.2 grand, we'll commission 4 songs for background music from Jesse Myers, made to all backers. And it's 7.8. I told you I needed to bring drinks. Oh my god, I'm doing a lot of talking. And at 7.8, there's 4 more songs as well. This one looks really, really cool. I love the aesthetic. I love the ideas. So another one to look out for. And this one is by Delden. My name's Christian Deladonna, but I go by Delden in my spaces online. I'm a queer game designer and game master for hire. So have a little look out for that. And we've got some collaborators here in Ben Fox, Pontius Hans Odaga, and Senza Deladonna. So what have we got next? The Barrier and the Sound. This one's really interesting, actually. It's got a 1-bit aesthetic, which I think is cool. So black and white pixel art. So this is The Barrier and the Sound, a 1-bit solo thriller TTRPG of surreal coastal weirdness. Another one that's hit its goal, only had a goal of £287. Obviously, this is being calculated in GDP for me, but will be different for you. From Stoughton VA, this is by Jay Walton, a researcher, teacher, grad student, and veteran indie game designer, best known for informally published cult hit games. So, Flotsam and Jetsam. Collecting seashells along the rocky shore, you stumble across a battered video game cartridge half buried in the sand. Waterlogged and corroded, there's no chance it still works, right? Still, once it's fully dried, you blow into the bottom of the cartridge, stick it into your ghost of a console, and press the power button. The Barrier and the Sound. Press start. Barrier and the Sound is a 1-player tabletop game about the beauty and strangeness of the coast. It's inspired by the storm-tossed barrier islands of Pamlico Sound, the rugged evergreen coast of the Pacific Northwest, and the crumbling sandy cliffs of Southern California. In terms of media, it draws on the haunted ocean side of Oxenfree and Bones of the Coast, the dreamlike islands of Link's Awakening and Oracles of Ages/Seasons, the surreal lighthouse shores of the Southern Reach trilogy and the Song of Sea, and the lonesome ruins of Monument Valley, Journey, and Sky Children of Light. Once again, love seeing games that are based on personal experiences, personal things that people are into. Not just like, I wrote a game because I like writing games, but also I wrote a game because I was really inspired by something from my life that I know leagues about because I've been living in it, much like the hiking game, as talked about before. This game is a 5x5, 6x5, by 6.5, inch saddle stitch. Oh my god, whatever. Designed to resemble a video game cartridge. Inside, a step-by-step guide supports the player's exploration of an imaginary coastline filled with the perplexing ruins of the future. Aside from the cover, the interior maps and illustrations are made of 1-bit black and white video game sprites, hand-drawn and arranged by the author, and the booklet will be at least 32 pages long and possibly more. Really, really cool aesthetic. Retro video game vibes, I think, really play into that kind of lonely feeling that you can get from some solo TTRPG games. It's, I don't know if it's doing it for you as well, but it is sort of like going a bit weird on the screen because it's scaled down a little bit. So apologies if you're seeing like it flashing around when I scroll. But yeah, very, very cool. Why 1-bit sprites? Firstly, they're really fun and visually arresting, despite being even simpler than the Game Boy's 4 shades of green graphics. It's a fascinating challenge to work within their constraints. And second, their 2-color nature makes them arguably the best pixel graphics format for zine printing, which is a fair comment. But yeah, lots of lovely ideas here. Poster map. It's a higher pledge level. It's not at all required to play the game, but it's an homage to the fold-out map that came packaged with the original Legend of Zelda. So another callback to LOZ there. And all sorts of things involved. Cool aesthetic, cool idea for a game. Go have a look. Project they love as well from Kickstarter there. That is The Barrier and the Sound from Jay Walton. Right. Now, we talked about cool gore before. Well, guess what? It's City of Flesh. This is a tarot-based femcore roleplay zine set in the rotting womb of a dying colossus. That is one of the best sentences I've ever read out on these streams. Let me tell you that for free. But in 3 hours, doing a massive amount here, 5 over 1 on the Ks. Coming out of the Netherlands by I was not prepared to pronounce this. I apologize. Elizabeth Chypredicul. I'm very, very sorry if that's wrong. But that is the designer from Leiden in Netherlands. Hiya, my name is Liz, and I'm the owner of Angry Hamster Publishing. When not dreaming up stories in lands far, far away, you can normally find me crafting or walking my dog. So, City of Flesh. Nagara is old, the city is dying, and you are the only one who can ward off the doom. City of Flesh is a tarot-based role-playing game where you play one of the midwives, a person imbued with primordial energy, tasked with staving off the end of the world as you know it. Together with your fellow players and GM, you create the City of Nagara and its unique locations using a tarot deck. Each session, your characters inch ever closer to a doom they're working tirelessly to prevent, but must inevitably face as the chronicle ends. I've always been really fascinated by games where failure is always the end state. I know that I always get called out in the comments when I recommend RPGs, and people are like, but how do you win? And it's like, you clearly don't get it, man, don't worry. But that's always something that I've been really into. Apologies for the ASMR water pouring sound as I get some liquid out. The game has a dark horror feeling of a dungeon crawl, while focusing on mechanics that drive in-game drama and push personal stories. You'll get embroiled in the various wars raging between guilds in the city and try to secure a bit of personal peace before all your efforts crumble around you. You'll strive to survive in a city that is literally trying to eat you and siphon off its power to keep the ones you love safe. City of Flesh takes inspiration from grim dark fantasy, combining it with a feminine aesthetic to create an immersive gore-splattered roleplay experience where you delve into the dreams of a sleeping colossus and tear through fleshy reality to make your own fate. So, very, very cool. Once again, incredible aesthetic. I love this. Like the wraparound text in the borders is just awesome. I love the way text sits around images and things like this as well, which is very, very cool. This as well, incredible. It once again got another sort of 1,000-year-old vampire style vibe of like and Morgborg. That I think that style is becoming really popular now. I'm not saying that they invented it or anything, but like that kind of really visually arresting like images that have just sort of splashed across the screen in all sorts of ways, and using those interesting shapes to really block out the text in really, really cool ways. Really cool design. Obviously using tarot cards is something that I'm really into at the moment, because I just got a cool set of tarot decks from Michael Ulrich, by the way. They're very, very pretty, which was a Christmas present. But tarot, I think, I really like cards in RPGs. I think they're sometimes more interesting than dice because they're so like static. Like they're, you know, they don't just have, sorry, they're so not static. They don't just have like 6 determined states like a die would. They've got like hundreds based on how they're ordered and all that kind of stuff. And tarot is really interesting because not only do you get the 4 suits in numbers, but you also get like all of these other really thematic, you know, like the devil or the I can't think of any others. I've forgotten the name of all tarot cards. What the hell? Hold on, one sec. M11 says, I know that tarot card artist. I think it's an amazing set. It's a really beautiful set. I'm just going to show them off quickly. But, like, for example, the Emperor, or the Queen of Swords, or the Hermit. You know, like, very, very thematic. I'm not going to be able to see any of this, are you? Because it's very, very crammed into the corner. But very, very thematic, like, ways of interpreting prompts and stuff, which are already built into the cards. Like, it's not a thing that you, like, look at in grids. You know, you draw like a sort of 5 of diamonds and you try and figure out what that means. Instead, it's, hey, this is a card that's called the Hermit. Like, that's already like filling you with ideas, you know? But this looks awesome. I just love that. I can't get over how good this first sentence is. Just a tarot-based femcore roleplay zine set in the rotting womb of a dying colossus. What an incredible pitch, right? And like I said, like some of these games just have some fantastic intros. But there you go. Titan Uranus says, do you have 3 of Cups? I love the 3 of Cups. I don't. I mean, I do, but it's in the deck, so I'm not going to find it for you, Titan. But here we go. Mortborg Tarot. No, these are Michael Ulrich. I will just give him a shout out because he's a very cool artist. This is a tarot deck by Michael Ulrich. It does have like a very sort of like medieval woodcut feel to it. So if you're into that, definitely go for this because they're awesome. They're all black, white, and red. Like they've got a really, really cool aesthetic. But there you go. So coming up next, Hibernation Games. So this one's actually kind of like a collab project by some very cool designers. A couple of names that I know. I will just say that I'm working with one of them. So just to highlight that, like I haven't brought this out because I'm working with them. It's just more of a coincidence, but just to make that completely aware before anyone has any questions about it. So Hibernation Games, 5 role-playing journaling RPGs, for solo play. So this is Zinequest anthology of single-player pen and paper games by Lucian Khan, Jian Shim, Anna Anthropy, Vidya Folletti, which is the one that I'm working with, and Will Jobst. So once again, very cool art, always good to see. But this one is actually kind of a like an amalgamation of different projects. Lucian Khan, you may know, I'll just read out their bio here, as the award-winning game designer of Visage versus Morgoth. So this was recently just won an Emmy, or possibly even more than one. So that is something to look into as well. Very, very cool designer. So if you're looking for a bit more pedigree, obviously this one, 10 grand, smashing their goal. Like, this has obviously got a lot of sort of big names in the indie space behind it. I'm just going to turn on the light so you guys can see me a little bit better. Let me just do... Ooh, not too bright. There we go. But yeah, so if that's something that, you know, if you want like a surefire deal, I don't think you should really approach this kind of thing like that. But if that's something you're interested in, then that is a good place to start. But Hibernation Games is a collective of 5 new solo role-playing games by 5 innovative game designers. The theme is literal and metaphorical hibernation. The icy cold, the spooky yet cozy mood, the moments of solitary reflection, the allure of the cave and the underworld. Each game uses its own unique systems to lead you on a creative adventure by yourself. You play the games by reading the instructions in the zine booklet, randomizing your options with cards or dice, and writing answers to prompts in a journal using your imagination. This anthology will be great solitary entertainment during the ongoing pandemic, and will continue to provide gaming experiences for rainy and snow days when the world opens up. So this is obviously... I know there are a lot of people literally freezing right now, so apologies if that's a little bit on the nose at the moment. Laurie O'Connell, hello. We very, very much enjoyed reading your Kickstarter page. Thank you for joining us. It looks very, very, very cool. Feel free to shout about it as much as you like in the chat. But yes, so let's look through, because there's 5 games here to look at. So there's The Thaw by Jian Shim. The end of your people lies embedded deep in the ice, and you are the last guardian. According to tradition, when the ice melts, you have one chance to save yourself and your people by engaging in single combat with whatever emerges in the thaw. When the traditions were set, there seemed no chance the ice would ever melt. Now, you stand vigil by the ice as the meltwater feeds the garden you should never have been able to grow, and flows into the well that you should not have been able to dig. There are still years left, but how many? How will you spend your remaining time before you meet your doom? There is Life of a Spell Scroll by Lucian Khan. Pretend to be a spell scroll. I really love games in which you play objects. I think they're really, really fun. Be created by a witch, enchanted with 3 spells, stolen by a bandit, hidden in a dungeon, found by an adventurer, used in combat and discarded. Perform ritual acts, tape papers to your body, interpret tarot cards and write in a journal. The mood alternates between comedy and tragedy, and the genre is Kafkaesque fable. Love that. I Love You Alive Girl by Anna Anthropy. In the nightmare future of 2026, the last remaining avenue for communication out of Lockdown City is reviews of online products. If you want to reach your distant lover in the Outlands, you'll need to hide your messages in reviews of products you've never owned. You must word your review carefully lest it be eaten by the algorithm before your love can ever see it. You suppose that doing this makes you a kind of hacker. That's so good. Oh God, I love that. I love that so much. What a concept. You can only communicate via Amazon product reviews for things that you've never bought. Oh my goodness, I love that so much. So much. Brilliant stuff. Okay. Gelatinous Cube by Vidya Folletti. You're an adventurer slowly being harmlessly digested in a gelatinous cube, seeing and interacting with the adventurers coming in and out of this dungeon. Experience the ever-changing lives of the dungeon residents as your relationships with them. Reminds me of there is an RPG that I can't remember the name of, in which you all collectively lie on the ground and play skeletons in a crypt after eons pass. and you'll kind of close your eyes and just sort of listen to the silence for a bit and stuff, which is very cool. It's got that vibe of just being stuck somewhere, which is quite interesting, which is obviously something that a lot of people are going to be very, very easy to call upon recently. And finally, last but not least, we got by Will Jobs' Drawing Dead. In this game, you explore the lives of 4 souls as they make their winding way from death to the afterlife. You play the dealer, a powerful but not all-knowing entity that ferries these once-living things to their forever after. As the dealer, you use a single deck of cards to deal hands of poker to phantom players, uncovering their lives, deeds, secrets, and revelations through the course of several rounds. Very cool. But there you go. Is it literally called The Skeletons? Of course it is. I'm such an idiot. But there's our creators. Keep an eye on Anna Ananthropy because I love this idea so much. I love You Alive Girl. It's fantastic. So keep an eye out for her, Vigilante, and Will Jobs as well. So that is Hibernation Games, 5 journaling RPGs for solo play. Really, really love some of the ideas presented in that. We are closing in on the end now. We've got 40 minutes left of the stream, so I think we've got some more to kick up. If there's any that you really want to shout out, then give me a shout in the chat. Tell me some titles. I've got 6 things that I'd already prepped to still talk about. But if there's anything else that you want to have a look at, I'm also going to be having a look at the tweet that I sent out and see if there's any more in there that the people are interested in. And we can also just do some browsing because, I mean, if you look at all Zinequest projects, there are 685 of them, and we can just scroll for days and days and days. So there's plenty of stuff to look at. Don't you worry about that. But coming up next, Planar Compass, issue 2. Traverse the astral sea, discovering bizarre opportunities and dangers in the second issue of this old school essentials zine. So this one has already gone. It will hopefully be available at some point soon. This one did really, really well. 600 backers at $14,000. But why do you seek adventure? Is it for riches, fame, or for the thrill? All this and more can be found on the astral sea. But what weird dangers lurk below the psychic waters? Are the rewards truly worth the risk? Take your chances amongst the buccaneers of the big black. Very cool theme. Space pirates. Who doesn't love space pirates? I really like it when people take nautical stuff and put it into space. It's cool. But when there's actual like space seas and people ride actual galleons through them, that's sick. Big fan. So I won't delve too much into this one because, as I said, it's already funded, got loads of cash, but just a cool aesthetic that I wanted to show off. Look at the cool space pirates. Very, very cool. Yeah, awesome. Big sort of comic book vibes to this one, which I really love. Just wanted to give it a quick shout, but obviously can't back it anymore, so just keep an eye out for it when it's available for grabbing online. Next up, Hatchanoff says, I'm really excited for an upcoming one that smashed Kickstarter. Oh, no, Hatchanoff, I physically can't read that. Next up, so this one is... I don't know if he actually got back to me. Give me a second. I think... yeah, we're just going to show off the preview page for this one. So this one is actually coming up. And I think immediately from the image, you can see that this is going to be an incredibly pretty RPG. I'm just going to do a quick refresh just in case. No, okay, cool. So this is a psychedelic adventure RPG in an art-forward, unfolding format as part of Zen Quest 3 by Floating Chair Club. And it's called Ether Operations RPG. So I got reached out to by the creator of this on Twitter when I put out the tweet to say, shout me about your projects. It's really, really cool looking just from the preview. I just wanted to be like, hey, this is cool. Have a look. But it's upcoming. They had a talk about possibly showing off some art, but I don't know if that ever came to anything, unfortunately. But as for any Kickstarter project, before it goes live, you can hit notify me on launch. You'll get an email when it goes live. So give that a look as well. That is Ether Operations RPG. Next up, Not a Place of Honor. So this one's quite cool. This is by David Lombardo. An indie RPG developer by day and a photonics research engineer by night. Don't have to fight for lab space if everyone else is asleep. He exists in the liminal space between story games and OSR and has developed unreasonably strong opinions on TTRPGs after having run several dozen different systems. So, Not a Place of Honor is a first-hand account of the containment of campaign-ending magical items by Bureau for Arcane Neutralization of Esoterics, or BANE for short. It's a system-agnostic TTRPG zine about the containment of powerful magical artifacts, inspired heavily by the SCP Foundation. So for those who don't know, this is kind of like an online kind of like urban fiction of kind of like this facility that just like houses strange things that shouldn't exist. Every SCP has a number. You hello David Lombardo, thank you for being in the chat. You see all kinds of odds, like they could be creatures, they could be weird objects that don't play by the rules. It's, if you ever play Control, it's got like a lot of similar themes to that as well. But yeah, so this is a very cool like inspiration, I think, for an RPG. So imagine you had a powerful magical artifact, one so breathtaking in potential and so vast in the risk that it could not be entrusted to anyone. Its very presence is toxic and destructive. Ideally, you would destroy it, but what if there was no convenient Mount Doom to throw it into? Perhaps bury it, put it out of reach, but how long would it remain forgotten? How long until some unknowing person digs it up? You could put up warning signs, but how long will they last? How long will people even be able to read them? Napo follows in the footsteps of real-life researchers who tackled this same problem, but for nuclear waste. In expert judgment on makers to deter inadvertent human intrusion into the waste isolation pilot plant, researchers worked out exacting details on how to design a location that shouts, "Keep out," in any language into any culture. So the reason this one actually jumped out at me, so there is a sort of YouTube video essays, and I don't know if you're also familiar with them, David, called Jacob Geller, who did a really interesting sort of deep dive into how this stuff works, of like, how do you stop humans so far in the future that you can't contact them from accidentally destroying their own world when you've given them the tools? Because like, where do you put these things? Like, how do you stop this from happening? So there's like, for example, I don't know if it's referenced in the campaign spread. No, okay. But there is like, first of all, it's buried under an entire desert. Then it's just filled with concrete. Then under the concrete, there are concrete spikes that tell you this is a bad place. And eventually, if you finally get to like the entrance to this place, there is huge stone tablets in like 26 different languages or whatever spoken around the world that just say, please, the stuff contained within this space is so awful and terrible for the world that it cannot be touched. If you open this, you are just going to make your lives worse because it's decaying nuclear waste. It's a really, really interesting thing. So Not a Place of Honor is part travelogue, part scrapbook, and part found footage. A collection of documents assembled by archivists follow the path of the researcher as they visited 6 sites that store impossibly dangerous artifacts. Its existence as an in-universe object is inspired by a field guide to Hot Spring Island by Swordfish Islands. It is a TTRPG supplement that can be shared with your players rather than kept behind the GM screen. So it's another cool thing. This is not just like a game, it's like a thing that you can use in any of your systems for, because it's like a field guide, it's like in-world knowledge that your characters can know. Kind of like, if you're just a D&D player, you might be familiar with like the monster guide is kind of like in-universe written by a character sort of thing, which is quite cool. So included are 6 magical artifacts, each illustrated by Emmanuel Mello. The items are described with 4 tiered levels of information ranging from simple diagrams, warning of the danger, to complex descriptions of their mechanisms and effects. So you've got like an example here of one of them, the sarcophagus that it's contained in, and the approach in which you go up to it and stuff like that. This includes the most important information, the measures taken to contain the artifacts. Taking a cue from the SCP Foundation, remarkable threats require remarkable measures to ensure safety. Each of the 6 potential arcane catastrophes are kept secure by complex safeguards. It's a very, very cool idea, really cool aesthetic. I like the whole sort of like... to be fair, I've seen it used in other things before, but like that idea of like almost not like a scrapbook, but almost like a cork board that is covered in notes and like stapled together and collected with like pieces of paper and paper clips and all that kind of stuff, which is very, very fun. Angel Beat says, but does it have the sarcophagus juice? The forbidden sarcophagus juice. But there you go. Very, very cool. Very, very interesting. Go have a look. Has hit its backing goal, but I don't know if there are stretch goals to go. Not that I can see. But go give it a back if you believe in it, if you want to have a copy. Looks like it'll be very pretty. Coming up next, we have Blood Feud. This is another one that's not quite out yet. Gay Vikings! So, Blood Feud is an RPG about honor, power, and toxic masculinity. You portray men struggling to uphold their honor. In the end, you will see what that struggle has cost both them and their community. So, especially in a medium in which we are very obsessed with combat and blood and fighting and like heroes and power, there aren't many sort of like that I know of. There aren't many RPGs that touch on that sort of like the underlying toxic vibes of being the strongest, most powerful hero and stuff. But it was like it sort of stood out to me, even though I haven't really seen the behind the scenes. You can see that the art's obviously going to be very pretty. You can see that it's got like an interesting theme. I thought it deserved to be mentioned because it's like it's a really cool thing to explore when looking at the space of RPG design. So, and also Gay Vikings, incredible. So there you go. Have a little look out for that. That is Blood Feud from Black Fisk Publishing, coming soon, hopefully. Once again, you can hit notify on launch to get told about it when it goes live. Right. Next up. This is something I wanted to give a quick shout out to. It's already been backed, but worth looking into. So this is Accessible Gaming Quarterly, Year 2. This is a quarterly zine about accessibility issues in tabletop games. So this is less of a game and more of just like a collection of essays and things like that. We are gamers. We love to play games, specifically role-playing games, board games, LARPs, escape rooms, and anything else that requires getting together with friends, both old and soon-to-be, to tell stories of heroic deeds, noble struggles, or intense dramas. We are also people with disabilities. We're not always considered when it comes to how games are designed, marketed, and played, but we will not be left behind. Accessible Gaming Quarterly Year 2 is a Kickstarter campaign to raise enough funds to publish a quarterly zine focused entirely on issues facing gamers with disabilities. In 2020, we launched Accessible Gaming Quarterly. I don't know why I can't say the word accessible. I'm going to take a quick drink. Thank you. There we go. Accessible Gaming Quarterly Year 2 is a Kickstarter campaign to raise enough funds. Sorry, I just read that. Accessible Gaming Quarterly, the first zine dedicated to accessibility and disability within the tabletop RPG hobby. Now, it's 2021, and we're looking forward to the second year of the zine. With your help, we can produce 4 more issues that are even better than before. Year 1 of the zine covered a lot of territory. We featured first-hand stories about how people came into the RPG hobby, how they play and GM games, how they design games, and what types of accessibility tools they use at the table. We interviewed a professional LARPer, reviewed an RPG and a sourcebook, and offered a step-by-step accessible layout tutorial. It was a big year for the zine, and it was just the beginning. For year 2, we plan on covering a similarly wide array of topics and intend to hone in on more creative content. We'll cover interviews with game designers, game masters, and players, creative content, including spotlights on disabled heroes and adventurers, new ideas for incorporating accessibility tools and aids into modern sci-fi fantasy and other games, write-ups to showcase how disabled characters can be built using various RPG systems, adventure ideas that put disabled characters at the center of the action and not on the sidelines or as props, and art by disabled artists and their allies, and more. So a lot of very, very cool things. This is something that's been sort of in discussion in the space for a little bit now. So obviously with the combat wheelchair being sort of brought into discussion and seeing the pretty horrible backlash that got as well for the creator, but also seeing the adoption that we've seen from studios like Artel, for example, who have like hired the designer for quite a few of their projects, including the Witcher RPG and Cyberpunk and things like that. Like it's something that I think is quite an important discussion, not just in tabletop space, but in video games as well, which is going on right now. So to be able to support publications that actually talk about that kind of stuff is very, very important. Apologies, sorry that we only got to it after it had already been backed, but thankfully there's been a big show of support, 166 backers raising $5,000 for it. So that's really, really cool. Laura B says, this is great. Recently saw puzzle makers on TikTok partnering with people with vision disabilities to make puzzles they can use. That's very cool as well. So yeah, lots of cool stuff. That is the last of the ones that I had prepped. There's other stuff in the comments of my tweet that I haven't had a look at yet as well. So that's worth going into. For example, let's grab some of the ones we haven't talked about yet. We've got half an hour left, sorry. But if there are any ones that you want me to have a look at, chat, shout me now. Now's the time. If you're a designer and if you've got a project up and we haven't talked about it yet, hit me up in the comments. Bear in mind you might have missed like the section of the stream if you came in late. Pietro P says, hey, Michael Whelan, Pink Lightning Wheels. Just joined from work. Keep up the great content. Still need to catch up on last week's Age of Sigmar. Thank you, Pietro P, for the super chat. The first one we've had on the stream. But yeah, a lot of the Lethal Fauna bric-a-brac look quite cool. A Greeblin's Journey looks quite cute. Successful Gaming Quarterly. Repugnant we want to talk about as well, actually. Nerves is a sort of like RPG kind of like essay book, which is quite cool. The Company, Conflict Resolution Guidelines. Pungeon Quest, Tattoo Punk I wanted to have a look at. What we give to alien gods, that sounds quite cool. Loads of cool stuff in my comments at the moment, which is going to have a lot of stuff to go through. Rasmus says, phew, poor Wheels' computer. I got to feel relieved after closing all those tabs. Logan says, I'm sure you're all wondering why I've gathered you here this evening is my project. Okay, Logan, let's have a little look at that then. Because I would love to see some stuff that hasn't come up in my searches yet. So, I'm sure you're all wondering why I've gathered you here. So this is by Logan Jenkins in the chats. Tabletop role-playing game of means, motive, and opportunity for 2 to 6 players. Very, very thematic intro, by the way. Let's have a little look at Logan. Hey, I'm Logan. I'm one of 4 folks that host Very Random Encounters, a podcast where we play pen and paper RPGs and randomize as many things as possible. Love that. Big fan. I also host Game Mechanics, a podcast about tabletop RPGs from lots of different perspectives. Sweet. Okay, so... Introduction. It is a dark and stormy night. You've just arrived in an impossibly large mansion on an otherwise deserted island. You were sent a mysterious invitation with no return address. Enormous doors open before you. You step inside, surprised to see that you are one of 12 invitees. The door shuts, then locks loudly behind you. The butler speaks. Oh, God, I get to do some acting in this one. I'm sure you're all wondering why I've gathered you here this evening. While I'm sure we are all still mourning the deceased passing, there is some good news. You are entitled to the deed to this very mansion, along with the private island it rests upon, and, of course, the vast fortune that goes along with it. That entitlement, however, is conditional upon you being the sole surviving guest in this mansion at dawn. The house is filled with secret passageways, traps, weapons, and 11 other people that stand to gain from your death. Good luck. Oh, yes. Love this. Cool art style as well. Reminds me of Gloom, the card game, which is very, very cool. Logan says, love the VO work. No worries. This is card-based as well. Oh, God, I have seen this. This is the one that's based on Clue. Yes. Okay, cool. So I'm sure you're all wondering why I've gathered you here this evening is a tabletop role-playing game for 2 to 6 players in which you will assume the role of one of 12 guests invited to the deceased's insidious game. The game usually lasts 2 to 3 hours. Using a standard deck of playing cards, you'll build the mansion, flesh out the remaining guests, and find out a bit about yourselves. So one player will take on the role of the butler to be the player guest's guide to the mansion. Always like it when the GM has like a... actual role in the world, which is very cool. Rasmus says it's like a reverse murder mystery game as well. Yeah, exactly. The book also includes rules to play without a butler if your group all wants in on the action. Secret cards. Each player receives a secret card to help fill in some details about their character. The number of the card tells you how close you are to the deceased, while the suit gives you access to special actions during the evening. So it looks like they're using sort of like a suit as class kind of mechanic, which is cool. So you've got... Oh, that's also fun. So you've got like a split between whether or not you're an even or an odd card as well, so based on what your details are. So there's actually kind of 8 like archetypes that you can sort of pick from, which is very, very cool. PHP says, or ISYAWWIGYHTE for short. As I said, I love an incredibly windingly long RPG title, so this is well up my alley. But yeah, this is looking very, very cool. I think, yeah, this is... Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the one that was sort of like inspired by like Clue and that kind of like murder mystery mansion, which is very, very cool. Love the look of this. That is by Logan Jenkins in the chat. Thank you very much for shouting out. This is one that I probably should have already been looking at. But that is, I'm sure you're all wondering why I've gathered you here. Very, very, very cool. Let's also look. Is there anyone else in chat who wanted to shout out something? Kobe Morris says, I would recommend Very Random Encounters. Is that one that's currently on the way, or is it one that's... Oh, no, wait, sorry, that was the name of the podcast. Never mind, my bad. Logan says, I call it I'm Sure for short. Argo Rehan says, I'm vibrating with excitement. Yeah, Pungent Quest is definitely for lowlies. Let's have a little look at some of the ones that were in the comments, because there's a few that I didn't get to grab before the stream started. So, coming up next, Superstition, a solo journaling RPG about creating rituals. And we're going to be real quick on this one now. M11 mentioned something. I made the Million Islands of Doom, if you want to look. Yeah, let's do it. Let me quickly do a search. Okay, tell you what, I'll go through this one, then I'll search using this tab. Superstition is a solo journaling RPG about creating rituals that you don't actually believe in for the sake of your community. This is actually, one that I gave a quick read of, and I really love the premise is really nice. It's kind of, it's got like a lovely, like white lies view to it. Hargarin says, here's another super chat. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Hargarin. Appreciate all your super chats. I know this has been one that's a bit more sort of like, it's a bit less chatting with you guys and more, looking at stuff on the website, but nothing you do will affect whether a season is bountiful or not, whether nature will be kind to your clan or not, but you must convince your chieftain that your rituals are worthy and offer your community hope. If not, you may be exiled or worse. Superstition is a solo journaling RPG with light game mechanics played with a normal 52-card deck. Matching card values across the seasons means you have managed to create convincing rituals, and your village and chieftain must trust you. If not, then their belief in your abilities to affect fate wanes until finally they might exile you. So very cool, sort of like a... like playing with fate, like that you can't predict what's going to come out of the deck, but if you can, then it might look like you are. Like, that's quite an interesting premise for a game. Looks like it's got some lovely layout to go. Very, very cool. Nice black and white aesthetic. Lovely to see. But let's move on to our next one here. Sorry, what was the Million Islands of Doom? Let's have a little look at that. So, coming up next. Oh, that's a very, very cool little splash of art. I love this. This is great. I love this. Okay, the Million Islands of Doom is an adventure scene compatible with any system that you can get your hands on. This one is still being funded, and we've got the designer in chat, which is very, very cool. So please do give them a hand. There's 11 days to go. Story. Somewhere far, far away from the comfort of your own home, there's a stretch of sea so vast it holds 1 million islands of varying size. The region of this sea can be neatly divided by their dooms, apocalyptic events that are threatening the very existence of not only the islands, but the world as we know it. It is your job to stop the dooms. Oh, sorry, is it your job to stop the dooms? I don't know, maybe. But regardless, this scene will function as a guide to one such region. Its doom and the end of the world as we know it. Welcome, dear reader. So, got a kind of Aegon vibe from this one. Sort of like going from island to island, having miniature adventures. The hex map was put together in Cecil Howell's hex kit with Nate Trem's Tiles of Zark set. It features art from the amazing Evelyn Moreau and an additional map from the Illustrations Dyson logo. It features 36 explorable hexes with a variety of interesting and weird encounters, including sky pirates, a strange crystal drug that lets you live inside someone else's mind, and doom cultists who are trying to summon an ancient demon through a volcanic eruption. No big deal, really. So, looking very, very cool. Islands filled with doom, fun world prompts for you to use in any of the games that you're looking for. Love that stuff. Love that stuff. Thank you very, very much for sending that in. It's from Red. I'm a tabletop game designer / writer from Sweden. I've got a soft spot for the weird, and I like thinking too much about games. Thank you very much, Emma. All right. Do we have anyone else in the chat who wants to shout out about stuff? Petra P says, oh, Wheels, there's ASMR videos with millions of views and way less content than this video, so don't beat yourself up over that. You're very welcome, Emma. Doom is moved as Titan Uranus. It is a palindrome of Doom, yeah. So, Crescent Moon by Emma Costa, says Laurie. Yeah, sure, let's do it. Oh, yes, this is one that I wanted to have, actually. I wanted to have a little look at. Okay. Crescent Moon, an adventure RPG about brave children and their dreams, shadows, and discoveries. Thing is, there are so many cool things as part of Zinequest. It's difficult to keep track of them all, because sometimes someone will be like, oh, have you checked this one out? And I look at it and I'm like, oh yeah, I've read this. And it looked cool. I've just not been able to keep it in my brain. Adventure, discover, connect. Crescent Moon is an adventure role-playing game about brave children delving into a strange dreamscape known as the Daydream. All of you but one will play as the kids, and during the game you will seek a way out of this world as you go on perilous adventures, make discoveries, and forge everlasting friendships under starlight. However, The grasp of the dream will still manage to reach you, and dangers will be at the turn of the corner in the form of mysterious forces, rival characters, and your own twisted reflections. Alas, the moon will always be looming over you, slowly turning its phase as your time runs out and the daydream turns fiercer and draws you in deeper. Will the kids manage to traverse out of the daydream before the full moon rises? What shape will their shadows take, and what dangers will they seed in their path? How will the kids grow and change from their journey? Really lovely, sweet visual design on this one. Really lovely kind of children's book art style. And just an overall really strong aesthetic to it. There are stretch goals. It looks like there are still some to come. We are on £2,400. Oh, maybe not though, actually. No, so all stretch goals have been reached. Yeah, fantastic. So this one's actually gone all the way through. Looks like a really lovely thing, so it's great to see. But if you like the look of that, there's still 6 days to go to back that project. Laurie says, Emma, the designer of Crescent Moon, is also one of the artists working on Lichcraft, so I can confirm the art is going to be amazing in this game. Yeah, Lichcraft had a really, really cool aesthetic to it as well, Laurie, so very, very cool to see that as well. Right. HC Bird says, can I please have mood written in the Doom font? Thanks. Yeah, if somebody could just work on that, that would be great. Vitus looks super cute. Yeah, let's grab that one. That was one of the ones that was linked in the comments of the tweet. So, a third-party settlement plus tree crawl for the Mouse Ritter RPG. So we talked about Mouse Ritter before. Pardon me, it's a game where you play mouse folk. It's got a very cool little blocky inventory system that I like. But the Vitacernis, or Vitacernis, Vitacernis, I don't know, is a third-party zine for the Mouse Ritter RPG containing a settlement and adventure ready to slot into any hex crawl or be run on its own. It centers around Ruby Grove, a mouse settlement built into the treetops of a peaceful grove surrounding a large, perennially red-leafed maple, the Vitacernis. Inhabitants of Ruby Grove revere the great tree and believe that the sacred red sap it produces has divine curative powers. Inside the Vitacernis, players will explore the hollow tree, find the ruins of an ancient settlement tangled in its roots, meet a rat necromancer at the results of its experiments, and learn the secrets of the mysterious maple and its life-giving sap. So a fun sort of pre-made adventure for you if you're into Mouse Ritter, or if you want to use it in any kind of a like animal folk RPG. If you're running some kind of like sort of multiverse world as well, then you can always just jump into a world where mice are huge. This is by Brian Stauffer, tabletop RPG and board game enthusiast. So there you go. Right. As I said, we're going through quick. We've got 15 minutes left to look at some stuff. What have we got here? Rascals, an RPG zine of high-stakes sci-fi action adventure. This one's already been funded. Rascals is a science fiction tabletop role-playing game of action adventure. The game system uses traditional playing cards and poker chips and is designed to bring the tensions, twists, and fortune of calculated gambles of action adventure stories to the fore. Rascals is an idea for 2 to 5 players, including the GM. Cool, black and white sci-fi aesthetic. You know I love playing cards. Cool stuff. It's got a tabletop sim mod. That's fun. That's good. Good to see. Cool. Love it. Moving on. Dungeons? Score. A 21-page dungeons scenarios for the RPG Game Master Storyteller / Drama Manager who is tapped out, rushing, or always on the go. That's really lovely. Hey, are you completely exhausted at the moment? Here's some prompts. This one has reached just its goal. 10 days to go, 50 backers, so if you want to give it some love. The Calicorner. There is a dungeon for those who like were-felines or other cat-like villains. So lots of cool little prompts for you to use, little bits, little hooks, little unique treasures and bosses and stuff. You can just flip to a random page, pick something that you like, and go with it. Love stuff like that. Really handy to have for running, especially things like all kinds of like strange systems where you expect to not really know what you're going to find in the next adventure. Great for that because you can just flip around and do all sorts of things like that. M11 says, Catzine? Catzine. Next up, what we give to alien gods. Explore ancient ruins, decipher alien languages, and question your PC's existence in this module for the Mothership sci-fi horror RPG. Mothership, a very cool RPG that I think we've written about on the site. It is a game in which you're playing like as AIs who, or rather you're playing as like androids, but you're not sure of your androids, that kind of thing. Very, very cool sci-fi aesthetic. I love this. I'm not sure if there's a zoom in on the pages, no, but I love this kind of strip down the sides with the It reminds me of a video game aesthetic, but I can't remember which one. But that kind of like vertical text strips, but like laid out to the side. Love that aesthetic. Love the kind of retro futurism vibe. Very, very cool. Fun little setting. Good to see. Coming up next, Tattoo Punk Anti-Bible. A punk anti-Bible for a tattoo punk world. Already been funded in Aussie dollars. Tattoo Punk Anti-Bible is a collection of game parts and world artifacts, designed to inspire the reader to create and play in a tattoo punk world. It's not a game or a setting, but rather the door to a game or a setting. So basically a set of tools for you to use to try and invent something cool in like an emerging genre. Tattoo punk, very, very cool. In the greatest city in the world, the monolithic Church of Light rules through the social elevation of unblemished flesh, a legion of ever-advancing mechanical enforcers, and through the religification of a burgeoning industrial revolution. Fighting against this status quo are the Tattoo Punks, an organization of intentionally marked folk, rumored to possess special powers and abilities that fight for literacy and knowledge for all, the socialization of industry, and freedom from the bondage of the physical self. Marginalized people rising up, punching up, love that kind of stuff. And tattoos are cool, so there you go. Have a little look at that one. Picture P says, doesn't it look like the Blades in the Dark book? Yeah, kind of vibes to that. The referencing the previous one there. Astral Sky says, I love this concept. Coming up next, all right, we've got 10 minutes left and a few to get through. Pungent Quest, a pun-packed land of Eam adventure. A system-neutral, randomized dungeon adventure full of punny riddles, traps, creatures, NPCs, and magical items. This is one that would go down very well with Alex Lowley's. This one has been funded. A few stretch goals reached, hopefully, as well. There's a frog. Love that. Love frogs. More frogs, please. What is Pungent Quest? Or what's in it, rather? Pungent Quest is a system-neutral one-shot adventure designed to be used in any role-playing game. Pit your adventuring party against the dastardly Punderlord, a madcap master of puns who delights in cruel and unusual punishment. Encounter the likes of the foul poltergeist, the deathly hilarious cackletress, the foppish werewolf who's late for a costume party, or the poor bastard sword who's just looking for his father. Oh, I love this. This is great. If you're looking for a wacky, like, good fun time, go for it. Yeah, loads and loads of NPCs and magical items and creatures got backed as well. Stretch goals, fantastic stuff. Puns are great. It's incredible. Have a little look at that. Next up, The Company. Conflict Resolution Guidelines. I'm going to take a quick drink. I'm doing a lot of fast reading. Argus says, oh my god, I'm already in love. Lojo says, Punderlord is my new favourite word. A sourcebook and expansion for The Company, corporate survival horror RPG. Ooh, that's a pretty book. This has got, I don't know if I watched it in the end, but there's a book called, or there's a film rather. Maybe it was a film based on a book called High Rise. It's got that kind of brutalist aesthetic, which I think is quite cool. The Company, Conflict Resolution Guidelines, is the expansion to 2020's The Company, corporate survival horror. Little bit of a note on that. The Company, you're joining a proud tradition of innovation, invention, and manufacturing that dates back over 300 years. In the pages of this handbook, you will find the tools needed to become an integral part of our corporate family as a member of the Asset Recovery and Containment Division. So, cool, horrible future capitalist overlords vibes. A game of emergency management professionals working in the private sector for a faceless mega corporation and facing the aftermath of their employers' hubris. It is available for purchase. So the Conflict Resolution Guidelines is presented as a 44-page zine and will contain the following: 6 full missions from exciting creators, new employee/player options, including perks, items, and a new career, the Executive, which specializes in need-to-know information and smooth talking to get out of tight spots. Really cool black and white art here, really lovely aesthetic. And plus new game manager assets like deeper mission building guidelines, variables and their generation, and rules for running campaigns of interlinked missions. So very cool. Love the aesthetic. Love things that show that corporations are bad. Cool thing to look at. Complicated Profession. We've got 6 left here. If there's any that people want to see, please shout them out in the chat. And we'll give them a little shout out. This is created by Jason Price. This is a game in which you create a ragtag crew of ex-bounty hunters and start a new life hosting space cruises. A GM-less storytelling TTRPG for 3 to 5 players. Lovely aesthetic, lovely art. What do bounty hunters and their crew do when the galaxy no longer needs them? In a complicated profession, they start new careers, hosting intergalactic cruises for fickle passengers in lawless space. Create a ragtag crew, and then... oh no, there's more words here. Create a ragtag crew of ex-bounty hunters, their jaded sidekicks, shabby droids, and shady accomplices. Then pick a hosting role and start a new business together on your very own ship. I love this idea. I love grabbing characters that have like run out of their... Hello, Toto. Do you want to come say hello? Have kind of run out their lot, and now they're having to like reinvent themselves, and to reinvent themselves in a space that is completely different from the vibe that they should be in. Fantastic stuff. Really, really good comedy value in that. And looks like a really cool RPG. It's already been funded, but it's available soon on itch.io, so you can go and have a look at that. That is a complicated profession. Next up, Nerve. So this is a magazine that's full of like game analysis and criticism, which I call. It provides introspective art criticism and features unique, pardon me, perspectives. This one's been funded. A huge amount of backings. 446 people pledging $10,000 for it. Nerves is a new tabletop role-playing magazine with a focus on analytical articles, critiques from unique perspectives, and introspective editorials. Basically, it's an emotional romp through the tabletop sphere in the hopes of developing art and highlighting underrepresented voices. Really important, really good to see. Unlike Dragon Magazine from way back when, Nerves is not focused on mechanics or guides. It's meant to take the tabletop games as a serious form of art and broaden the discussion, hello Toto, to match how people talk about other forms of media like film, television, and literature. The cat has arrived. So, yeah, this is a very, very cool thing to see. It's important to not only open platforms for new and emerging writers from either like marginalized spaces or from ones that just aren't necessarily heard from that much, to allow them to talk about it. But also, it's really important, I think, to talk about art forms with the amount of importance that they deserve, you know? And I think game design is an incredibly interesting art form, and to hear people actually talk about it, you know, with a critical eye is a really cool thing. So a lovely thing to look out for. Looks like they've already got a few of the articles that you can read here sort of like prepped for it, which is good to see. Angel Beat says, I always love it when pets invade live streams. You are really wanting the center of attention whenever I live stream, aren't you, buddy? Whenever it's like a clock goes off inside of him where he's like, I know it is my time to arrive and to cause trouble. Okay, we have got 5 left here, racked up. I'm just checking the chat to see if anyone's talking about anything else that they want to see here. Dying Hard on Hard Light Station, says Andrew O'Brien, or Gordon Ack for Space Max. Okay, right, we'll try and grab those. Oh my god, my brain is melting. We'll try and grab those in the backlog so that we've got some to look at, but we've got 4 minutes, so this is going to be the speed round now. Repugnant, the world's most disgusting TTRPG. Gleaming heroes and debonair villains be damned. Get nasty and bathe in the upchuck of grime and greatness where gross is the goal. Love the aesthetic on this. Very sort of like sludge punk kind of like the sort of thing you'd see on like a skateboard magazine. Very, very cool. Love the bright sort of toxic green. Cool vibes, like Garbage Pail Kids almost, but as an RPG. Really love the aesthetic. Lots of really, really cool design elements of this. Something to look at. People popping their zits is for the stretch goals, which are called retch goals. How can you not love this? Okay, this is brilliant. Yeah, Goosebumps as well, Rhiannon. So not much time to go into how it all works, but looks very, very cool. Love the aesthetic. Go have a look. This one's been backed, but there are still retch goals to go. So have a look at those when you can. Next up, this one is not on Kickstarter, which is something that I didn't make clear in the tweet. Was like, it doesn't have to be a Kickstarter link. They do officially sort of like have a month for it on Kickstarter, but it's not necessarily something that you have to do on Kickstarter. This one is coming out from itch.io with their crowdfunding service. Itch.io is where I get a lot of the cool indie RPGs that I'd like to talk about and play. This is a Greeblin's Journey. Solo journaling RPG is temporarily more expensive because it's being crowdfunded right now. So still plenty to go on their goal. They have, I don't know if there's like a time limit on this or not, but go have a look at this. A Greeblin's Journey is a solo role-playing journaling game about a traveling creature called a Greeblin. They have become unsettled from their home and now traveling for the first time in a world they've never explored. The road is strange and not nearly as kind as their bed, but they have to do something. They have to go somewhere. Lots of fun. Love this little guy. He looks like a great time. Good things to check out. Have a little read through. It's from Thomas Novosel. Coming up next, Lethal Fauna Bric-a-Brac, the fully illustrated zine with 16 plus new monsters for OSR and fantasy RPGs. Each monster is fully illustrated by yours truly in my trademark brush and ink style. Even if you don't play fantasy games, you can still feast your eyes upon some glorious art. This is a cool one to look at. It's been funded, but plenty of space for it to do more. If you're not really into RPGs, but you want to support RPG creators, it's just a fun little thing that you can read through, and you can just look at some cool monsters and have some fun illustrations. False Grandfathers, the Honeyglum, very, very cool. I love weird creatures that people have invented. Big fan. Go give that a look. Up next, Hope Is Not a Plan, a solo journaling RPG about the existential dread of professional project management. Really interesting theme again by Steve Wright here. You'll use a deck of cards, a 6-sided die, and if you have one, a tumbling block tower game from your games closet to guide the experience using the writing prompts in the book. Make something big, build a pharmaceutical plant, launch a satellite, execute the global release of a new smart jogging shoe. Each turn represents a week in your project, documented in your client status report. The game was written in 2020 and is available digitally on itch.io. This campaign supports development of the second edition with new features and professional editing, a quality print run, and some limited edition swag. Really interesting theme to explore. Go have a look. Coming up next, Crescent Moon, which we've already talked about. Okay, so let's have a look at some that were jumped out in the chat. Down you go, buddy. All right. Here we go. There was a few that were Desert Moon of Kotg. Let's have a little look at that. Desert Moon of Karth. A space western sandbox on a tiny moon for the Mothership RPG. So this is another one referencing Mothership, which is the game that we were talking about earlier. Harvest the ossified corpses of coral beings and live forever. Lovely aesthetic. Love space westerns. I just think it's this is beautiful. Very, very cool comic book vibes. Almost like is it more? Oh god, what's his name? You know the comic book creator that I'm referencing here, who has this similar style. I can't remember his name for some reason, but also a musician, I think. But anyway, there you go. One sits down on a desert sand dune, sees nothing, hears nothing, yet through the silence something throbs and gleams. Not Alan Moore. Desert Moon of Karth is a space western sandbox adventure zine for the Mothership sci-fi horror RPG. Karth is a tiny, mesa-studded moon on the galaxy's edge. The only way down is an antique space elevator to the lawless boomtown of Lars Town, a place surrounded by even greater danger and strangeness in the wastes beyond. Survival or salvation is not guaranteed, partner. Mobius, thank you. There we go. It's got very, very big Mobius vibes. I don't know why I can never remember the name of anything when I'm on a live stream. As soon as I get off of it, I'm like, oh yeah, that obviously. But that is going to be the last one that we have a look at. Lovely illustrations, lovely maps and stuff, loads of content to use. This is great. Love space westerns. They're cool as hell. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. This has been a bit of a rambling one, as I said. But it's pretty good, I think, to have a look at some of the cool things that are coming out as part of Zinequest. I hope you've seen loads of cool things that you're interested in. I hope that I haven't completely bankrupted you because now you want to buy a million different things and that's going to be your new way that you spend all your money. But it is really important to support indie creators, give loads of people a chance at making something so that they can insert themselves in the industry and have their voice be heard. I tried to make sure there was quite a few sort of marginalized voices that were represented. Obviously, tabletop gaming space is still very white, very straight, very male. So it's great to see a lot of games being made by trans creators and queer creators and people of color and just like people from spaces that we don't normally hear about, which I think is really important. So if there's other stuff like that, please, once again, even if you're watching this in post, shout about them in the comments on this video. Let people know about them if you're passionate about something, because as I said, there's over 650 of these things. There's a lot to pick through, so sometimes things can get lost. So it's good to shout out about ones that deserve shouting out about. Thank you very much for watching. If you are currently in the south of America and having a horrible time with cold, I feel very, very sorry for you. I hope that this has brought you a small bit of warmth. But in the meantime, we will see you tomorrow, hopefully, for another live stream here on Dicebreaker. This is your first time on the channel. Please do hit subscribe, hit the bell icon to get notified when we put a new video live. You can click the like icon as well, which will just help this video reach more people. You can also find more of our stuff over on Dicebreaker.com, which is where we have all kinds of articles. You can see Alex Meehan, for example, writing about the Legend of Zelda RPG that we were talking about earlier, as well as Chase, who's one of our contributors, talking about all sorts of really cool stuff. And you can also support the channel by buying some merch. I don't have any of it with me right now, but you can buy merch from dicebreaker.myshopify.com to give us just a little bit of an extra hand. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. I will see you hopefully tomorrow for the live stream. Have a lovely day, and please go back some indie RPGs. See you later. Bye.